The story begins right here with this egg, and it's no ordinary egg at all. No, this is a rare egg that actually contains two dragons. Normally, a rare dragon hatching from something like this is supposed to stand at the very peak of the world, because this bloodline is fundamentally rare. But things don't go that way at all for our protagonist. The moment he hatches, he is immediately expelled from the clan and thrown into the most dangerous tower in the entire world. This happened because of the Dragon Clan's law, which states that if an egg contains two newborns, only one can be kept. The second newborn must either be eaten or thrown away. Our hero, whose name is Rico, was the weaker one, so he was the one sacrificed. When he was thrown away, his family was completely certain that it was impossible for him to ever escape the dungeon he was put into. The problem with this place is that it is truly incredibly dangerous, filled with all kinds of powerful monsters. For Rico, just surviving there for 2 days would be considered a massive achievement. Even though Rico's bloodline is rare, and all the monsters wanted to eat him, his tiny body allowed him to hide from them. Right now, Rico is nothing more than a level 1 dragon fledgling. Yes, he managed to escape the monsters, but the one thing he couldn't escape was hunger. It was only a matter of time. Rico was definitely going to die of starvation. But one time, while wandering around looking for anything to eat, his nose caught a very distinct scent. His instincts were screaming at him. What are you waiting for? Move right now, and follow that smell. Without thinking too much, he moved, crossing from cave to cave until he finally reached the source of the scent. There, he found a massive earth dragon fast asleep. She was about 20 meters long and level 28. A single bite from her would be more than enough to erase Rico from existence. Near this dragon's belly, there were 4 small hatchlings nursing. Earth dragons aren't considered full, true dragon, but their blood is dragon blood at the end of the day. Because of that, it was only natural for Rico to drink this milk, because it would definitely benefit him. He actually moved, sneaking closer step by step, until he was right next to the dragon's belly. When he focused on the hatchling, he felt that luck had finally smiled upon him. The hatchlings were fresh out of the egg, and none of them had even opened their eyes yet. This meant it was the perfect opportunity for him to blend in among them. Without anyone notice, he immediately rushed toward the milk and started nursing, as if he was drinking for the first time in his life. The mother dragon felt that someone was nursing quite aggressively, but she assumed it was just one of her kids and let it be. As for Rico himself, the moment he drank, he started feeling a very strange heat, and literally, the feeling of life returned to him. Slowly but surely, his level began to increase. Because Rico felt so safe, he found himself falling completely asleep without even realizing. But a little while later, he woke up suddenly, and that was because the mother was lifting him up, and she looked absolutely furious. Rico thought to himself, this is it. This is my end. This mother definitely won't let me go. She's going to kill me right now. And because he was so sure of it, he gave up, curled his arms and legs together, and waited for his end. But the surprise was that death never came. The angry features of the mother began to change, and her rage started to calm down. She told herself, nothing bad will happen if I leave this. At the end of the day, he's just a miserable creature. So, she actually put him back. She went back to sleep, and the 4 hatchlings kept circling around Rico enthusiastically, sniffing him. Rico thought to himself, I feel like I'm a new member of the family. But what he didn't know was that this wasn't a welcoming greeting at all. They were actually bullying him and making fun of how he looked. Rico heard the insults and didn't like it one bit, so he opened his mouth and let out a terrifying roar right in their faces. All 4 of them were terrified by that roar. They never expected that, and honestly, even he didn't expect himself to do something like that. As time passed and his level increased even more, a new skill unlocked for him called mental communication. This skill allowed Rico to understand the monster's words, and at the same time, they could understand him too. From here, 3 completely peaceful days passed inside the cave. In reality, life for Rico was much kinder than he could have ever imagined. True, these new siblings of his were bullies and annoying, but it was obvious they genuinely loved him. Even when they sensed danger in the cave, they would huddle around him and put him in the very back so he wouldn't get hurt. Rico used his skill to look at their stats and said, they are all actually weaker than me, but I shouldn't reveal something like this to them. At the end of the day, I'm a rare monster and my growth is much faster than theirs. Over the past 3 days, I've reached level 9, while all 4 of them are still stuck at level 4. Little by little, Rico started to truly feel that this was his real family, 1,000 times better than the family that brought him here and threw him away. The only thing bothering Rico was that he couldn't speak to the mother at all. Every time he tried to communicate, say hi, or say a single word. She would just give him this weird look and stay silent. Rico didn't worry too much about it and thought the good days would just keep rolling like that. But one day, everything shattered completely because a level 35 Kodo monster invaded the cave. The Kodo was directly targeting the 4 little dragon, and from its gaze, it was obvious it wanted to eat them. With swift intervention, the mother gathered her children behind her and pushed them into the corner of the cave. She stood right in front of them with her entire massive body to protect them from this Kodo. In an instant, the battle began. It was clear the mother was genuinely powerful, but unfortunately, her strength was a lower level than the Kodomon's. As time went on, she started to get weaker and weaker, and suddenly, the Kodo's horn pierced straight through her chest. But even while she was impaled, she kept resisting and fighting back to defend her children so the Kodo wouldn't eat them. Through her resistance, she actually managed to act as a rival to the beast, even taking a bite out of its flesh. The clash between the two monsters was terrifying. The ceiling of the cave began to collapse, and rocks were raining down. Rico immediately jumped up and started smashing the falling rocks to protect all the little ones. He said, "This collapse is too fast, and I don't know what to do right now. Should I keep protecting these 4 kids, or go and try to help the mother? But even if I try to help her, I won't make any difference against a massive monster like this Kodo." As the fight raged on, the Kodo managed to lunge again, sinking its horns deeper into the mother's body. The mother's wounds worsened, and she realized she couldn't hold on any longer. She looked over and saw Rico protecting the children, and thought, "This boy truly is my son." It was the right decision to let him live. From the very beginning, gathering every last ounce of power she had left, she struck the Kodo with a suicidal blow. The strike was so devastating that it heavily damaged both of them, and they crashed to the ground. When the battle finally quieted down a bit, Rico immediately ran over to the mother to check on her. From the look of her, he understood she was probably dying. Indeed, despite nearing death, the mother tried to speak. She asked him, "Tell me right now, where are the children?" Rico was shocked by the question and didn't know how to answer. The truth was, all 4 of the little ones had died, completely buried under the rock. The cave-in was too violent, and despite Rico's desperate attempt, he couldn't save them. The mother asked him again with her final breath, "Why are you silent? Tell me, where are the kids right now?" Rico couldn't bear it, and with a broken voice he lied, "They are fine, don't worry. They are just a bit unconscious." Hearing those 2 simple words, the mother felt at peace, and a calm expression washed over her face. Then she told him, "Listen, to be careful. I have one final request. Since I'm going to die anyway, I want you to eat from me." Of course, Rico couldn't believe his ears, but she explained that her body contained immense energy and was a very powerful food source for any monster. It was better that he ate from her instead of some strange monster doing it. She also told him, "I honestly don't even understand how a bloodline as rare as yours ended up in a place like that." With that, she reached her absolute limit and completely passed away. But on her face, there was a look of comfort, all because she believed her children were safe. Rico was now left entirely alone in the middle of this cursed cave, not knowing what his next step should be. He said, "This woman who just died treated me better than my own biological mother, and the little ones who died were my brother. I don't know how I'm going to continue my journey now. But guys, we are in a dungeon here, so there is absolutely no time for sadness." Suddenly, a massive roar echoed through the area. The Kodo, who was supposed to be dead, stood back up. Even though its skull was completely crushed, it was somehow still alive. To the Kodo, our hero Rico was just a tiny fledgling, not even worth considering as a threat. But Rico himself wasn't scared at all. Instead, he gathered his power, remembered everyone who had died, and said, "I have to avenge them right now." In that exact moment, as he was preparing himself, a message appeared saying, "New skill unlocked, Dragon Aura." Rico didn't hesitate and dashed straight toward the monster. He knew perfectly well that piercing its thick skin was nearly impossible for him because of his low level. But luckily, the mother had caused a massive gash right at the back of the Kodo's neck. That was exactly the spot Rico wanted to reach. With terrifying speed, he extended his claws to the max, managed to plunge them right into the wound, and tore it wider with every bit of strength he had. While the fight was going on, memories kept flashing in Rico's mind, whether it was the mother's silence from before, the little ones making fun of him, or how they used to sleep curled up around him. All of this turned into literal fire inside Rico. He had only one goal now. He had to kill this monster and take revenge for his new family. Because of that gaping wound, he actually succeeded. After roughly 4 hours, Rico stood before the mother's dead body, gently placing his claws on her. Quietly he said, "I have to keep it together. We are in a dungeon, and death is a very normal thing. I'm going to see it happen a lot. Deep down, his regret was visible because he couldn't save his four brothers. With a determined voice, he spoke to her. "Mother, don't worry, I will stay alive for you, and for my brothers, and I will even do things I never wanted to do." He opened his mouth and literally bit into her flesh, forcing himself to chew and swallow. The taste was incredibly bitter because he was eating the flesh of someone he loved, but despite that, Rico had decided not to leave a single piece behind. He needed to benefit from it and level up. After 3 full days pass, Rico emerged from a cave. By then, he had reached level 18, even though that number doesn't sound very high. Because Rico was a rare monster of a superior class, he could easily fight level 30 monsters. He stood at the entrance of the cave and smiled a strange smile, showing he was ready for a fight. He could sense 3 monsters nearby, and to him, that was excellent news. From that moment on, Rico began to carve his path deeper into the dungeon through sheer combat. 5 whole days passed after he left, and during that time, Rico managed to wipe out almost all the minotaurs in the area. The biggest thing driving Rico to do this was his glutton skill pushing his instinct. The skill kept urging him more and more to continue fighting. With the fall of the very last minotaur, Rico finally reached level 20. At that moment, a message appeared telling him, "You have reached the maximum cap for your current level. Experience points have been paused. You must now choose a new evolution path to continue." He received 3 options. The first option was the natural path of the Candle Dragon, which increases mana capacity. The second option made his senses sharper and reflexes faster. As for the third path, it was a bit strained. It was called the Degenerated Candle Dragon. This path doesn't even unlock unless a dragon manages to survive in extremely harsh conditions. Generally, this path massively boosts vitality and agility, but at the same time, it reduces mana capacity and physical growth. Rico thought about it for a bit and started to understand the current world system. Every 20 levels represent a specific phase, and every phase requires a new evolution to progress further. Suddenly, before he could even choose, he felt a strange pressure coming from behind him. He spun around quickly and realized that, without noticing, he was now completely surrounded by more than 20 subordinate Kodos. They had him boxed in perfectly, and right behind them, an even more massive monster was slowly stepping forward. This monster's body was gigantic and had this terrifying aura all on its own. Using the Truth skill, Rico managed to check its data and learned that this was the subordinate Kodo boss. It was level 88, a rare monster, a fighter, and close to the middle class tier. To Rico, the trap was obvious, but he couldn't figure out why, since there was no direct hostility between him and these specific beasts. When he activated mental communication, the boss mocked him and said, "So you're the one who's been stealing food from our territory all this time." Instantly, everything made sense. The minotaurs Rico had been hunting all along were actually the main food source for these Kodomons. By killing so many of them over the past few days, he had effectively cut off the food supply for these Kodos. Rico decided he wouldn't act weak, because if he showed weakness here, he would literally get crushed. He planted his feet firmly and spoke to the boss. "Yes, I'm the one who killed your prey. You can consider it revenge for the Kodo that killed my mother." But in reality, inside his head, Rico was desperately trying to think of a way to escape right now. The Kodo boss got furious and used a skill called Earth Shrinking. He vanished from his spot and appeared directly in front of Rico instantly. At that exact same moment, all the surrounding Kodos readied themselves. Rico completely lost all sensation, as if he was paralyzed in place. He was absolutely certain that a single hit from a monster of this level would be enough to end everything. Despite trying to think of a million scenarios, he obviously couldn't find a single solution. There was truly no way out. But suddenly, without any warning, a pillar of pure blue light descended straight onto the Kodo boss and swallowed him completely. The monsters that were close by didn't even have time to scream before they were turned into ash in a split second. Then, we hear the sound of different footsteps echoing in the area. These were no ordinary creature's footsteps. They sounded more like a mountain walking across the land. Literally every step shook the ground violently. Rico was absolutely certain from inside that this was going to be his end. Rico looked behind him to see what creature had appeared, and that's when he saw a being so colossal it looked like a mountain range moving on the ground. Even his Truth skill could only display 2 lines of text. Leviathan, level 355, superior class monster. Of course, there was absolutely zero comparison between this beast and Rico, who was just sitting at level 20. The whole thing was bizarre to Rico. He had no idea why a dungeon boss like this would even be on the first floor. He decided to just hold his breath and hide until the sound faded and silence returned. Only when that happened would he be able to breathe again. His plan was somewhat successful, though unfortunately, his right leg was injured from the shockwave of the explosion. After thinking it over, he made his decision. He had to evolve as fast as possible. He made sure there were no monsters nearby, opened the evolution screen again, and said, "It's a good thing I have a small body." That's why he immediately ruled out the normal path, because on the normal path, his body would grow massive, and he didn't want that. At the end of his thoughts, he selected the third path, the degenerated candle dragon. This path is considered lower in terms of bloodline purity, but it still maintains its origin as a candle dragon. Most importantly, it was the best path to keep him alive. Immediately, the evolution process began. All his pain disappeared, his old skin started peeling off, and entirely new scales grew in. His entire appearance changed. When the evolution was complete, we see him drop back down to level 8, but he was far more solid and durable than before. All his stats increased dramatically. His vision and perception became insanely sharp. Through those heightened senses, he understood that Leviathan's presence on the first floor had completely shattered the ecosystem and balance of monsters, causing any survivors to flee in every direction. Rico honestly still didn't understand why the great Leviathan would show up on the first floor, but he knew one thing for sure. The first floor was never going to be simple and safe like it used to be. For that reason, he decided he had to leave right now and descend to the second floor. He had actually found the entrance to it a little while ago, so finding it wasn't hard. But of course, the second floor was much harder than the first, and if he went down there, he wouldn't be able to return to the first floor again. But as you can tell, the first floor was collapsed, and he had no other choices left but to drop down to the second. A few minutes later, he reached the entrance of the corridor leading to the second floor. He closed his eyes, said, "Let's go," and threw himself straight down. Unfortunately, the landing wasn't the greatest. His leg got scraped up because he landed right on a human shield. He expected from the start that the dungeon wouldn't be comfortable, but when he realized it was a human shield, he was shocked and thought, are there actually humans in here? Since the day he was born, he hadn't seen a single human, and honestly, the concept of humans had completely faded from his mind. While he was thinking about this, he heard a very weak voice coming from behind him. Rico fully expected it to be a monster about to attack him, so he spun around quickly, extremely cautious. But the moment he looked, he saw something he never expected. He saw a girl sitting in the corner, thin, small, and looking incredibly fragile. This was the very first human he had seen since he was born. Not only that, but the girl was beautiful. And for someone like Rico, who was an extreme introvert, he didn't even know what being in a relationship meant. His imagination instantly ran wild, taking him way too far into the future. Before he could utter a single word, the girl let out a terrifying scream, fell backward onto the floor, and started crawling away in absolute terror. Because there was a wall right behind her, she had nowhere else to escape. This reaction was very confusing for Rico. After all, he was just a small, slightly chubby, cute little dragon. Girls were supposed to like him. He tried to calm things down, slowly taking a step toward her, and said, "Listen, I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to know how you got here. Could you please explain it to me?" Instead of calming down, the girl looked even more terrified. She started muttering strange things, saying, "If I fight, I might live. If I don't fight, I'll definitely die. I just want someone to save me right now." None of this made any sense to Rico. Feeling awkward, he tried to inch closer to show her he wasn't an enemy, but that approach pushed the girl to her absolute limit. She spun her leg around and delivered a full-power roundhouse kick right to his face. Rico was completely caught off guard. However, despite the close range, the kick only chipped off one single HP. He thought, "I can't believe it. This girl is incredibly weak. It's actually absurd. Let me activate my true skill and check her stat." Truly, the description in her data was nothing short of pitiful. She had 0 skills, was level 19, and was just a completely normal human female. With stats like those, the girl shouldn't even have been able to survive the first floor. Yet miraculously, she made it to the second. In that same moment, we see the girl sitting on the floor gripping her leg. It was very obvious she had hurt herself kicking Rico's tough scale, but driven by fear, she ignored the pain and sprinted frantically toward a nearby tunnel, looking almost insane. Rico tried to catch up to her, but suddenly giant spiders dropped from the ceiling, one after another, completely blocking his path. We learned that monsters in the dungeon always hunt based on life force. This meant that to the spiders, the girl was just a weak human and not even worth the effort of fighting. The spiders decided to target Rico instead. Even though they weren't dangerous to him, they were enough to delay him from reaching the girl. He disposed of them easily, but sadly, the girl had already vanished from the area. Rico was deeply disappointed. He just wanted to talk to her and learn more about humans. From here, 5 days passed, and slowly but surely, Rico began to adapt to the second floor. Truly, the second floor was much harder. Not only were there way more monsters, but the types were entirely different, and they were significantly stronger. Almost every single day, Rico encountered a new species he had never seen before. Among the things he found were human, or rather, let's say the remains of human. Any human Rico stumbled across was either a full corpse or just scattered body part. Despite all these events, the girl he saw on that first day stayed on his mind because she was the first living human he had ever seen. Recently, Rico started finding human remains in oddly large numbers, unlike anything before. He also saw a massive amount of human foot. He estimated that at least 200 people had been through here. Rico said, "Alright, it's incredibly obvious that the dungeon's environment isn't made for humans at all. If they knew this would be the outcome, they would never have entered in the first place. But still, since they came in, they must have a different way to get back out." Rico clung to that hope, but unfortunately, days of tracking the human footprints yielded absolutely no result. All he kept finding were just more fresh remains, nothing else. Out of pure frustration, Rico decided to leave the cave he was in, but right before he walked away, he felt something extremely strange coming from behind his back. The exact moment he moved to look, a highly compressed blade of wind sliced right past his head and slammed into the stone wall behind him. The blade completely annihilated the rock as if it were just paper. Rico had absolutely no time to think. He used his acute hearing to figure out what creature was there, but before he could even process it, the creature's speed was terrifying. It closed the gap and launched another attack. Rico threw himself back, only to realize he had been grazed by the last strike. From out of the darkness, a girl's voice called out, "Strange, you took 2 hits and you're still alive. It's clear you're not weak. You look pretty tough." The creature that attacked licked the blood off its claws and stood up on 2 legs exactly like a human. Then she continued, "If you have the mental communication skill, let's talk. But be absolutely certain that since you stepped into my territory, you shouldn't expect to leave it alive." Rico couldn't see clearly who was talking, but he felt like she was smiling at him. Instantly, she dashed toward him with insane speed. The eye couldn't even track her. Her speed had reached a terrifying level, and Rico never imagined he would face an enemy like this. He decided to just protect his vital organ and dodge the fatal blows aiming for him. By doing this, he probably wouldn't die right away. But unfortunately, the creature's speed was so overwhelming it left him almost completely paralyzed. If the situation continued like this, he would be slowly whittled down to death. Rico had no other options left, so he decided to open his skill tree interface. Rico knew every single skill available on the tree. As we mentioned, it's a skill tree, meaning unlocking one branch allows Rico to access the next, and skills generally can't be unlocked without meeting certain requirements. The main point is, he had prepared a core skill for unlocking, waiting for the day he fell into real trouble to use it. So, he finally spent 1 point to unlock Dragon Perception and another point to unlock Mental Focus. Finally, he spent 5 points to unlock a skill called Pulse. In an instant, his entire perception of the world changed completely. Rico spun around and blindly threw his elbow into the empty air behind him, resulting in a brutal, heavy collision. The girl went flying far back from the sheer force of it. Rico immediately followed up with his Dragon Breath skill. A literal torrent of blue fire poured out, completely swallowing the girl whole. When he finished, Rico relaxed and said, "The cost of using that skill was enormous, but the most important thing is that it worked." But then, he was confused by something else. He didn't receive any experience points at all. He realized this meant the target he attacked hadn't died. He was incredibly surprised, because a direct hit from his dragon breath should kill anything. He walked forward to check on the charred creature, and when he saw her and confirmed what she looked like, his heart literally started beating again. This creature was called a mongoose. She was level 51, categorized as a humanoid, a legendary middle-class monster, and her status was shifted form. Rico kept staring at the interface, feeling a very strange ache in his chest, a feeling he had never experienced before. He thought, "How is this possible? I was just about to kill a mongoose." Just so we're clear, mongoose monsters are very common on the 2nd floor. They look similar to cat, but their faces are much closer to human face. Naturally, they are ordinary monsters that don't draw any attention. But the one standing in front of our hero right now was not ordinary in the slightest. Rico never imagined he would cross paths with a mongoose that had reached complete transformation like this. She was 80% human, and right now, even though Rico had wanted to kill her just moments ago, he found himself completely unable to deliver the final killing blow. The mongoose looked up at him and said, "What are you waiting for? Just kill me already, and put me out of my misery in this world." Rico thought for a second and replied, "No, never mind. I'll let you go. Cat meat isn't really to my liking. It tastes bad. Plus, I don't really like skinny ones like you anyway." The mongoose yelled at him, "Do you think I'm weak, broken, and pitiful enough that you don't even want to eat me? Fine. Mark my word, if you let me live today, next time, I will kill you." Rico completely ignored the threat and asked her something far more important. "Why did you even attack me in the first place?" He told her, "I've had my level 2 dragon aura active this whole time. That aura isn't supposed to deal damage, but it sends a very clear message to the rest of the monsters around. I am not an easy target. That's exactly why most monsters haven't been attacking. When Rico saw she wasn't answering, he repeated the question again. The mongoose couldn't stand him and snapped, "You're the one who walked into my territory in the first place. That is something I never allow. Anyone who enters my territory must die." Rico was very surprised by this mongoose, and especially by her instincts that drove her to protect her specific area even if it cost her life. The mongoose asked him, "Are you just here scouting me out or something? You're supposed to be one of the dominant monsters controlling the second floor, so you should have plenty of information." Rico simply replied, "I've been down here for less than a month." The mongoose said, "Impossible. You should have stayed outside. It would have been better than entering the dungeon. Surviving here is incredibly hard, and you're basically ending your own life. Life on the outside is much better." Rico told her, "You're right about that, but I still need to get used to the cruelty inside a dungeon, because this cruelty is exactly what will increase my strength." He continued, "I know that on the outside, animals and humans can be friends, and humans will provide everything the animal needs. But the one thing they will never provide is freedom, because the animal will always be subservient to the human. Since I entered this dungeon, I understood one thing. The dungeon is the only place that truly belongs to monsters, unlike the world outside." At that moment, the mongoose was in terrible shape. She said, "What are you waiting for? I already lost the fight, so please, just kill me right now. Or are you just sitting there enjoying watching me suffer in front of you?" Rico was incredibly puzzled. This girl was supposed to die any second, so how was she still talking to him without showing fear? He told himself, "I always try not to use mental communication with dying monsters in front of me, because I'm afraid of hearing them beg. No matter how strong the monster I am, at the end of the day, I have a heart and I feel for those who are dying." Rico was hesitating whether to kill her or not, thinking, "I'm not stupid. If I leave her alone, she will definitely survive and come back to kill me later." So he raised his claws, finally ready to end the matter. But right before he could bring the strike down, a massive explosion echoed, shaking the entire dungeon. He stopped his claws at the sound. Then, the entire second floor began shaking violently, as if the world itself was being ripped apart. The mongoose said, "It's obvious the humans are back at it again.